it has been a while. I'm really sorry. Hey, what's up everyone? I am SheNoob. Well guys, here we are. 11 reviews and 3 reaction videos later, and this is it. The last review of RWBY Volume 3. Once again, I apologize profusely for this being so late. As you may know, I started university 3 weeks ago, and ever since then my life has been hectic. I have not had time to make this video. Also, make sure you stay until the very end of this video because I'm going to talk about what I'm going to do when the Volume 3 soundtrack comes out and when Volume 4 comes out later this year. Like I said in the last review, I'm not going to go hugely into detail because this episode was long. I'm just going to talk about the main events that happened. By the way, in case this is somehow the first of my RWBY Volume 3 reviews you're seeing, there is a playlist on my channel containing all of my Volume 3 reviews. I'll link it in the video somewhere here now so you can check it out. And in case you missed it, Daniel and I both filmed a reaction to the finale episode. Again, linked in the video somewhere. I don't know where, probably here. So without any further ado, let's go. RWBY Volume 3 finale. Right at the start of the finale, we're thrust straight back into the action we left off from at the end of chapter 11. Cinder and Ozpin are going at it hard. That sounded a lot dirtier than I meant it to. I mentioned this in the reaction, but to elaborate, Shannon McCormick, the bloke who voices Ozpin, previously said that we wouldn't get to see Ozpin fight this volume because he didn't record any efforts. As we can plainly see by this scene, he's a bloody liar. Now, I don't know if he genuinely didn't think Ozpin would be fighting just because he didn't record efforts, or if it was a deliberate attempt to throw us off from the surprise. But still, there seems to be a history in the RWBY crew about lying just to throw us off. The score here, even though it was short, was amazing. I wish we could have had more of this fight, but of course they can't show us too much. Ozpin is a complete badass. He probably could have beaten Cinder given the chance. A lot of people now are convinced that he's the wizard from the story of the Four Maidens, but I'm still not sure. I feel like it would be too obvious. And so far in the show, nothing has really been absolutely what it seems. Moving on to the next scene, we see that Port and Oobleck made it out of the Griffin arena safely. RWBY finally catches up with the rest of her team, and then she sees what's happened to her sister. And something kind of odd I noticed was when we saw Yang lying on the ground next to Blake here, Raven's theme is playing in the background. Have a listen.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's very brief, but it is there. I'll get back to that later. Nora says that Jean and Pyrrha are still missing, so RWBY says she's gonna go and find them. And then there was a nice moment there where Weiss stepped in and said,
"No, we will find them."
Also, when she held RWBY's hands when meeting her at the beginning of this scene, it has been so nice to see Weiss's character develop so much over these 3 years. Going from her not really being able to stand RWBY in Volume 1, to now seeing her thinking of RWBY as a comrade and someone she wants to protect, someone she cares about. I guess that's what happens when you're in a team together for a year, and you go through as much crap as these girls have gone through. Then we go to Jean and Pyrrha just as they run out of Beacon Tower. Pyrrha's quiet, and she looks like she might be plotting something. I pretty much guessed what Pyrrha was planning, but I couldn't understand what she wanted to accomplish. She must have known she'd be going to her death. I never took Pyrrha as a martyr type. She must have known it would be in vain. And when she kissed Jean, though it was such a nice moment in a twisted way, it put the nail in her coffin for me. I knew then that this was her end. When I react to the episodes, I may be doing a bit of this or a bit of that, but most of what's going on is internal for me. And then when she pushed him in the locker and sent him off, I immediately made the symbolic connection to Volume 1. I felt so bad for Jean. She never even got to explain any of this to him. And I have to commend Miles for his performance when Jean is talking to Weiss on his scroll. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Then we go to the top of the tower to see Cinder walking up there. The dragon peeks its head in the window. The dragon that I think everybody has forgotten about at this stage because there's so much else going on. Cinder talks to the dragon and then it looks down at her almost like it understands. I'm not really sure if that's anything or if it's just nothing, but I don't think we're actually going to find out, because then Pyrrha crashes her party. This fight between Pyrrha and Cinder is exactly what a penultimate moment in a show like this needs to be. This was do or die for Pyrrha, and you could really feel it. The score was incredible, the animation was fabulous, the fight was epic without being too flashy. It could be really easy to overdo a fight where a maiden is concerned. In their case, less is more, and I think they nailed that here. Another thing that really cemented Pyrrha's demise for me was when Cinder destroyed her weapon, Milo. There were actually a lot of people getting upset about this, saying that it wasn't possible. Basic physics, guys. When you heat metal, it weakens it. It's entirely possible, if you have full maiden powers. In this fight, we really see Pyrrha pushing her semblance to its absolute limits. She's doing things that I don't think she even knew she could do. Moving objects more than twice her size and easily 10 times her weight. This was a fight where she needed to rely heavily on her semblance, something that she doesn't normally do, and it doesn't let her down when she needs it most. I also noticed the callback to RWBY running up the side of the tower using Weiss's glyphs. There was a lot of symbolism here, a lot of references to the first volume. It was really signifying that this was the end of a chapter, the end of the story arc, some might say. Speaking of symbolism, right after Pyrrha's aura goes down, she takes one of Cinder's arrows straight to her Achilles tendon. As you know, Pyrrha's character is based on Achilles, and that was how Achilles died. But something that confused me about this was how did Cinder's arrow, after it passes over Pyrrha's shield and forms on the other side, going in a parallel line like this at shoulder level, end up in Pyrrha's heel near the floor at point blank range? It doesn't really make sense. Unless Cinder's arrows are suddenly homing now, but then why would she aim for Pyrrha's Achilles tendon? There are much easier ways to incapacitate someone. I can't imagine how RWBY would have felt knowing that she got there just seconds too late to save Pyrrha. If it was me, I'd feel pretty crappy about it. When Cinder's arrow strikes Pyrrha in the heart, we see these little red sparks fly up and out of the wound, and their colour of red same as Pyrrha's aura, which makes it seem like that is actually Pyrrha's aura that's escaping her body, which would mean that back in chapter 11 when Yang had her arm severed and those little yellow sparks were escaping her wound, it seems like it's the same thing. The aura is escaping through the open wound, much like blood would. I never really thought of aura as a physical, sort of tangible thing. I've thought of it more like a force or an energy, but this almost makes it seem as tangible as blood. So what I'm wondering now is, does this mean that Yang's aura has actually been damaged? Or does it just regenerate itself like blood does? Of course, we've never seen this before until this volume, so we really don't know that much about it. But going back to the scene, something I wondered is, as Pyrrha was dying and she was looking off screen, was she looking at RWBY? Did Pyrrha see RWBY before she died? I hope she did. I hope she knew that she wasn't alone, and that RWBY had come and tried to save her. I didn't have much of a physical reaction to this watching the episode, because I saw it coming from a mile off. But to see someone like Pyrrha, someone who is so selfless and who gives thought only to others, someone who loves and trusts as willingly as she did, to see her die like that, you can imagine how that felt. I'm sure many of you felt the same. It broke my heart. However, I do take comfort in knowing that Pyrrha's death definitely wasn't in vain, because upon seeing her friend die, RWBY unleashes some kind of power. That seems to upset the dragon and Cinder. There is something so enjoyable and so satisfying about that moment. When Cinder's facade crumbles like that and she screams, "What?" When you have a villain usually that is so calm and so collected, sure of themselves and their plots, that is always one step ahead of the good guys and is the orchestrator of everything, it is so satisfying to see them lose their composure the way Cinder did here. In a way, the good guys had the last laugh here because something happened that wasn't a part of her plans, something that she didn't expect. After that, the screen goes white and we hear Crow talking to an unknown person. Beacon Tower's been destroyed, so now communication is down across the whole kingdom. So nobody outside of Vale knows what's going on. All they would know is that somebody hijacked the feed and that Vale has been attacked. Then we go to the scene of RWBY and Yang's childhood home on Patch. And we have the first proper appearance of their father, Tai Yang, who as it turns out is voiced by Bernie. Tai Yang tells RWBY that the dragon is currently frozen on top of Beacon Tower, but it's still attracting Grimm to the school. Tai Yang also seems to hold some kind of almost resentment for Crow, shown in the way that he speaks to him.
What, I can't stay here?
And the look that he gives him when he leaves the room. Perhaps it's resentment for all of Crow's secrecy. Crow and RWBY talk about the events that just happened, and we find out that RWBY knows Cinder's name. A lot of people have been wondering, how does she know her name? I thought that Cinder would have used a fake name while she was in Beacon, but it would appear that she didn't. Really, why would she need to? Because nobody knew who she was. Crow then asks RWBY what was the very first thing Ozpin said to you when you met him. And of course it was this.
You have silver eyes.
I have always wondered why Ozpin said that to her. At first it just seemed kind of arbitrary, and then I thought it was in reference to her mother, Summer Rose, who also had silver eyes. And she went to Beacon Academy, so of course Ozpin would have known her. But now Crow tells us the story about the silver-eyed warriors who could destroy Grimm with just a look. And he mentions that Summer was one of these warriors. So it would seem that Ozpin let RWBY into his school early not because he knew her mother, but because of her silver eyes and what they meant. So in a way, I suppose you could say that Ozpin wanted to make sure that her power was his, in a way. One question I have now is, if Summer was one of these silver-eyed warriors and she was this powerful, how did she die? If she even did die, there is the possibility that she's still alive. But I'm gonna say probably not. I'm increasingly wondering what happened to Summer Rose. Crow tells RWBY that their enemy has moved on to Haven now, and he winks at her when he calls her a pipsqueak. Now I think that Crow gave RWBY this information on purpose because he knew that she would take off straight to Haven. And he could never outright just send her to Haven. Tai Yang would never allow it. He just got his daughters back. Then RWBY goes into Yang's room. And when we see Yang here, Raven's theme plays again. Listen.
Yang?
I'm wondering if Raven's theme playing during these couple of Yang scenes is hinting at Yang's path for next volume. Or possibly hinting at Raven watching her, maybe. The facial animations in this scene were so perfect. The ever so subtle changes in Yang's face when she hears RWBY say her name. Her eyes start to water, her mouth wobbles right before she speaks. The animation has gotten better and better every episode. They seem to be getting so much expression out of their faces now. Then Yang clues us in on the fates of two people we're all wondering about. Where are Weiss and Blake? She reveals that Weiss's father came to Vale once he realized what was going on to take her back home to Atlas, and that Blake took off once they got to the city. Yang is really angry with Blake for running off like that. I don't blame her, but I also understand why Blake just took off without an explanation. Adam is on her ass, hell-bent on destroying her life. Yang already got her arm cut off on Blake's account. She doesn't want anything else to happen to these girls, to Sun, to anybody that she cares about. She felt like she had no choice but to get herself as far away from them as possible. And I've got a really bad feeling that that's going to backfire on her. That Adam is going to see through it, and instead of going after her like she seems to want him to, he's going to go after the people she loves. Yang's expression again here when she talks about Blake, tiniest movements that show the hurt on her face. And then the anger. This whole scene had me this close to tearing up just purely because of the animation on Yang's face. The whole point of a character having expression is so that you can feel what they are feeling. And they absolutely nailed that here. Then RWBY turning away and leaving and saying,
I love you.
It gets me every time. I'm so worried about Yang. Everyone's really worried about Yang right now. But she's going to be okay. It may take a long time, but she will recover. I seriously doubt that she's going to have any sort of heavy involvement in maybe the first half of Volume 4. So don't be surprised if Yang doesn't get back up and start killing things straight away. It's gonna take her some time. Then we see the weather transition from fall to winter, signifying that some weeks have passed. Ruby is leaving her house and Jean shows up. She's obviously communicated with him somehow and told him about what her Uncle Crow said. So now what's left of Team Juniper, Jean, Nora and Ren are going to go with Ruby to Haven to see if they can't find out more about what's going on. I'm not overly worried about them right now. They certainly have the resources to protect themselves. But I am concerned about what they'll find once they reach Haven. Then as the new team, Team Ranger as they've been dubbed, are walking away starting their journey, Jen Taylor's narration starts up.
A smaller, more honest soul.
If we all remember at the very beginning of Volume 1, Jen Taylor narrated the opening of the show. She seemed to be talking to someone. That someone was Ozpin, though we weren't aware of it at the time. This is the continuation of that conversation. As she is narrating, we see that Yang is still in bed, and there's a raven or a crow peeking in through the window. I'll get to that later. Beacon is completely in ruin. Glinda is still in Vale trying to fix things up, but she seems to be injured. Blake looks like she's trying to get out of Vale. And in her shot, we see in the background the dragon frozen on Beacon Tower. And if you look really closely, what looks like a figure standing near the dragon, which might be Cinder, but Cinder's fate still remains uncertain. We see Weiss on an airship heading back to Atlas, and for the first time we see her father. And he looks like a right prat. I'm going to be interested to see where Weiss's story heads next volume and the dynamic between her father and her. I'll also be interested to see if we see any more of Winter. And then after all this we see a strange land and a figure clad in black with white hair and skin and bright red eyes. Very similar to a Grimm. In the credits we learn that this person's name is Salem, and this is who Jen Taylor is voicing. We know almost nothing about this person, other than what she looks like, who she's voiced by, and that in this scene she is talking to Ozpin. So now we know where Ozpin is. We just don't know where Ozpin is. The moon is in the background, so it's somewhere in Remnant. And we know that Ozpin is definitely alive. Then the credits roll and Divide starts playing. I have been listening to this song non-stop since the finale came out. I absolutely love it. I think I actually love it more than I love Sacrifice. It seems to be Salem talking to Ozpin, if you listen to the lyrics. But it's a really great song. It is over 3 minutes long, so it seems like it might be a finished version, but we won't actually know that until the soundtrack comes out. And then immediately following that is about 1.5 minutes worth of a song called Cold, which is Casey and Jeff's tribute song to Monty Owen. That song combined with Monty's mention coming up at the end of the credits finally broke me. I'll come back to that in a second. First, I want to talk about the after credits scene. Crow actually turns into a crow at the end, and he flies off to follow Team Ranger. So now I'm wondering about Raven as well. I remember saying in my Chapter 3 review that that bird that was staring at Crow and Winter as they had their confrontation, it seemed like there was something about that bird. And now this is just confirming my suspicions. So now I'm thinking that that bird that was looking in Yang's window might have been Raven or Crow. Are they some sort of shapeshifters? I guess maybe we'll find out next volume, or maybe we won't. Also, I'm wondering, where did Crow get Ozpin's cane from? Did Oz leave it behind under the school or something? And also, why does he need it? He wouldn't have it if he didn't need it for something. Going back to Monty now, I just want to say what a fabulous volume this has been. What an enormous step up from last volume in animation, in the way the show looks, in the way it feels, in the emotion, the maturity, just everything. And I want to say that Monty would be so proud of what his team has done with this volume. I can't imagine how hard it must have been for the team when they lost Monty last year, knowing that they'd now have to carry on his show without him. Ruby was Monty's baby. They had big shoes to fill, but he would be so proud to know that his team are carrying on his legacy with great finesse and great pride. Monty was taken from this world far too soon, but he lives on through his show, and his team and us the fans will never forget him at what he gave us to Monty. And that concludes my review for RWBY Volume 3, Chapter 12, End of the Beginning. As always, I hope you enjoyed this. And now I have some business to talk about regarding the soundtrack and next volume. I'm going to do a soundtrack review, meaning I'm going to listen to all of the tracks, including the score, get really familiar with them, and then I'm going to review them track by track. This is going to be an experiment, but I feel like it's something you guys will be interested to hear my opinion on, is the music, since I rave on about it so much. I will be doing fight scenes with just their score. I will be doing lyric videos for much of the music that was used in the episodes. I will be doing score excerpts for this volume, and in that category I'll be doing really special ones for Penny, Roman and Pyrrha to celebrate their characters on the show. You guys are gonna love them, I think. Another big announcement I have to make is I'm not doing reviews for Volume 4. Don't freak out, because I'm doing something else. Something that I think is better, something that you're all going to love, but I can't announce what it is yet. I will closer to when Volume 4 is coming out. At the moment, it's up in the air whether or not I'm gonna do reactions to Volume 4's chapters. Maybe, we'll see. And just some closing words on Volume 4. Kerry and Miles have said that they are already working on scripts for Volume 4 as they wrapped production on Volume 3. And Gray Haddock was on AfterBuzz TV's RWBY After Show, and he said that 2016 will be the year of RWBY, and that they'll have some things to announce in a couple months' time. So it looks like the time frame for Volume 4 is going to be a bit sooner than we originally thought, but we'll know more about that soon. I have a minute left on my camera's memory. I have to wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for watching. My social media links are on my right. Subscribe, click that big button up there. There's more of my videos below me now. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey, watching all of my reviews and reactions. I love you guys, and thanks for 9,000 subscribers too. Oh my gosh, I'm really running out of time. Okay, thank you. I will see you in the soundtrack review. Bye!